A small gray kitten was born into the harsh realities of life on the streets. Despite the hardships, he lived in the comforting presence of his mother, who tirelessly searched for food to sustain him and his siblings. Oblivious to the dangers surrounding him, the kitten spent his days frolicking with other street kittens, his tiny heart brimming with curiosity and innocence. But one fateful day, everything changed. While playing, he wandered too far, losing sight of his mother. Alone and disoriented, he searched desperately for her, weaving through the labyrinth of streets that now seemed alien and unwelcoming. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the kitten grew hungry and frightened. His tiny stomach growled, and his instincts led him to the local dump, a place he had seen his mother frequent in search of scraps. The dump offered little solace, just heaps of garbage, a biting chill in the air, and shadows that seemed to stretch endlessly. Life had already taught him to endure hunger, avoid aggressive dogs, dodge speeding cars, and steer clear of indifferent humans. But nothing could have prepared him for what would happen next. That evening, a group of teenagers passed by the landfill. Their laughter and chatter pierced the quiet night as they heard faint cries coming from the trash heap. Intrigued, they followed the sound and soon found the small gray kitten. His soft mewing, a plea for help, tugged at their attention, but not their compassion. The kitten, sensing their approach, looked up with hopeful eyes, his fragile body trembling. He believed they might save him, but his trust was a cruel mistake. Instead of kindness, the teenagers responded with mockery and cruelty. One of them grabbed the kitten by the scruff of his neck, lifting him roughly. "Look at this little thing," one of them sneered as the others laughed. They began tossing the kitten back and forth, treating him like a toy. His tiny cries of pain and fear only seemed to fuel their amusement. Each time he landed in their rough hands, his small body jolted with pain. The laughter grew louder as one of them pulled out a phone to record their twisted game. The kitten's frail body began to give out under the torment. His cries grew softer, his energy drained by the relentless assault. Finally, when his tiny frame could endure no more, the teenagers discarded him like trash, tossing him into a nearby waste bin. His body, bruised and battered, lay limp among the refuse. The world around him blurred as his consciousness faded. Darkness enveloped him, and the cold, hard surface of the bin became his final resting place, or so it seemed. The next morning, fate intervened. A kind-hearted woman, a volunteer known for rescuing abandoned animals, happened to pass by the area. As she approached the landfill, she heard faint mewing. Following the sound, she came upon the waste bin and peeked inside. What she saw filled her with horror and heartbreak. A small, gray kitten, barely breathing, his body broken and bruised. His tiny paws were raw and his fur was matted with dirt and blood. Her heart ached as she carefully lifted him out of the bin, cradling his fragile body in her arms. Determined to save him, she rushed to the nearest veterinary clinic. The doctors were shocked by the kitten's condition. His injuries were severe, and his chances of survival were slim. The best option might be to put him down, one of them said gently, trying to spare her the pain of false hope. But the woman refused to give up. She saw life in the kitten's faint breaths and decided he deserved a chance to fight. Using all her savings, she authorized the necessary surgeries. The medical team worked tirelessly to stabilize the kitten, cleaning his wounds, setting his tiny bones, and giving him fluids. It was a delicate operation, and the outcome was uncertain. After hours of meticulous care, the surgery was complete. The woman brought the kitten home, dedicating herself to his recovery. She named him Ash, inspired by his gray fur and his resilience, like a phoenix rising from the ashes. For weeks, Ash teetered between life and death. The woman and her family cared for him with unwavering devotion, feeding him with a syringe, keeping him warm, and whispering words of comfort. Slowly but surely, Ash began to heal. His bruises faded, his strength returned, and his spirit, though scared, began to shine once more. Within months, he had transformed. The fragile, injured kitten was now a lively, affectionate companion, grateful for the second chance he had been given. Ash's new home was filled with love, warmth, and safety. He followed his rescuer everywhere, a testament to the bond they had forged through shared adversity. No longer just a survivor, Ash was a symbol of hope and resilience, a reminder of the power of kindness to heal even the deepest wounds. The kitten who had once been discarded and forgotten now basked in the warmth of a loving family, his days filled with play, affection, and joy. And while his scars remained, they told a story not just of pain and cruelty, but of recovery, love, and the indomitable will to live. For several hours, the poor kitten lay there, unable to move or feel much of anything. His body itched from the torment, and the world seemed to grow quieter and quieter as he drifted in and out of consciousness. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, fate stepped in. The next morning, a kind-hearted girl walked by the area, specifically looking for stray kittens. She was a volunteer, someone who cared about the welfare of animals that had been abandoned or mistreated. As she walked past the landfill, she noticed something unusual, a small gray lump in the waste bin. Approaching carefully, she realized it was a kitten, badly beaten and left for dead. Her heart sank, and she immediately scooped him up, determined to help. The girl rushed the kitten home, where she gently cleaned him up and began the process of nursing him back to health. She offered him food and water, carefully feeding him and providing the warmth and care that he had never known. The kitten, though weak and scared, began to respond to her kindness. Slowly, he regained his strength, and his body, though battered, healed with time. It wasn't long before the kitten, now named Gray, began to trust his new human. He was shy at first, unsure of this newfound kindness, but the girl's gentle touch and consistent care allowed him to feel safe for the first time in his short life. As the days passed, Gray started to show his playful side again, his curiosity returning as he explored his new home. The girl couldn't believe how quickly he adapted to the love and attention she gave him, and she was overjoyed to see him blossoming into the happy, healthy kitten he was always meant to be. Gray's transformation was nothing short of miraculous. From the fragile, beaten creature who had been left to die in a waste bin, he had become a playful, affectionate cat who was loved and cherished. He learned to trust people again, and the once cold, indifferent world of the streets was replaced with a warm, caring home. The girl's compassion and dedication saved Gray's life, and in doing so, she gave him a second chance at happiness. While his past would always be a part of him, Gray now had a future filled with love, security, and care. A future that was far brighter than anything he could have imagined on those cold, dark streets. The kitten's recovery marked the start of unimaginable cruelty. The girl, who initially seemed kind, revealed her true nature. She locked the kitten in a small cage, withholding food and water for days. The tiny creature cried out in hunger and pain, his fragile body growing weaker by the moment. His uncleaned cage caused his paw pads to become sore and raw. Instead of compassion, she found amusement in his suffering, recording his distressed squeaks on her microphone and playing them back like a sinister tune. As the days passed, her torment escalated. Bored with the monotonous cries, she began torturing the kitten to produce new sounds. She subjected him to unimaginable horrors, such as spitting him inside a washing machine as if he were a toy. She tossed him around like a rag doll, laughing at his helplessness. When his cries grew weaker, her cruelty intensified. She started injuring his hind legs, leaving him immobile and in excruciating pain. The kitten's screams echoed through the walls, a heartbreaking plea for mercy. The neighbors couldn't ignore the noises any longer. Concerned, they knocked on her door, asking about the sounds. At the time, the kitten lay motionless in another room, too weak to make a sound. The girl assured them there was no issue, and the neighbors, believing her explanation, left without pressing further. Realizing she was being watched, the girl decided to dispose of the kitten. She placed his frail, barely conscious body into a box and threw it into the basement, hoping no one would discover him. His legs were too injured to move, and he lay in the cold, dark space, unable to understand why he was being treated so cruelly. Tears welled in his tiny eyes as he longed for the mother who once protected him. Days passed, and the kitten remained unnoticed, trapped in silence and despair. Nearby, other stray cats roamed, and a kind woman often came to feed them. She never ventured into the basement but regularly left food outside. One morning, she found the usual gathering of cats missing but heard faint mewing coming from the basement. Curiosity and concern drove her to investigate. What she found was heart-wrenching. In the dim light, she saw adult cats gathered around the kitten, their collective cries urging her to act. The kitten's tiny body was covered in deep wounds, and his paws were severely damaged, showing signs of infection. It was clear he was on the brink of death. The kind woman's heart broke at the sight, but she knew she couldn't leave him there. With gentle hands, she scooped up the injured kitten and resolved to save him, determined to give him the chance at a life he so desperately deserved. The cat's insistent mewing compelled the kind woman to investigate further. To her astonishment, the kitten was still alive, though barely clinging to life. His tiny body was ravaged, his breathing shallow, and his frail form teetered on the edge of life and death. With a heavy heart but unwavering resolve, she scooped him up and rushed him to the nearest veterinary clinic. The veterinarians were horrified by the kitten's condition. The damage to his tiny body was so severe that the lead doctor hesitated. "We have two options," he said grimly. "We either operate, which carries almost no chance of survival, or we euthanize him to end his suffering." The woman's heart ached at the suggestion. Though the odds were grim, 1 in 100, the doctor said, she couldn't bear to abandon the little creature who had endured so much suffering in his short life. Tears welled in her eyes as she made her decision. "No," she said firmly. "He deserves a chance." She handed over her savings, sacrificing every penny she had, and gave the go-ahead for the operation. The veterinary team moved swiftly, working tirelessly to save the kitten. Hours later, the surgery was complete, but the fight was far from over. The kitten's recovery would be long and uncertain. She brought him home, nursing him with tender care. Her family rallied around the fragile kitten, whom she lovingly named Baby. Day by day, he began to show signs of improvement. His tiny body, once broken and weak, grew stronger with each passing week. Months later, Baby had transformed into a lively and affectionate cat. He moved around the house with surprising agility, a symbol of resilience and the healing power of love. Baby's life was now filled with warmth, safety, and care, a stark contrast to his harrowing beginnings. His savior and her family cherished him, and he returned their affection tenfold. He became a cherished member of their family, bringing joy to their days and comfort in their moments of need. Years later, the family moved to a new apartment, bringing along the woman's elderly mother, who was 86 years old. It was a fresh start for everyone, and Baby seemed to thrive in his new home. However, one fateful morning, his bravery would be tested again. Early one morning, the grandmother decided to prepare breakfast. Unbeknownst to her, a gas leak had occurred during the night. The rest of the family was still fast asleep, unaware of the silent danger filling their home. The grandmother's diminished sense of smell and poor hearing prevented her from noticing the gas. But Baby, with his keen senses, immediately detected the hazard. Baby leaped into action. First, he ran circles around the elderly woman, mewing desperately and trying to stop her from igniting the gas stove. But when his frantic attempts failed, he dashed into the bedrooms. He jumped onto the bed of his owners, nudging and pawing at them with urgency. Groggy and annoyed, they initially tried to shoo him away, but Baby persisted. His behavior was so unusual that it jolted them fully awake. As soon as they stirred, they caught the distinct smell of gas. Realization struck, and their hearts raced as Baby darted back toward the kitchen. They followed him and found the grandmother seconds away from lighting the stove. A spark would have caused an explosion that could have destroyed not only their apartment but the entire building, endangering countless lives. Acting quickly, the family stopped her and turned off the gas. Baby, sensing the danger had passed, calmed down and curled up on the grandmother's lap, his little body trembling with exhaustion but radiating relief. The family immediately opened all the windows to ventilate the apartment and called the gas service to address the leak. As the tension subsided, they looked at Baby in awe and gratitude. The little cat they had once saved from the brink of death had now saved their entire family, and potentially many others. The grandmother stroked Baby's fur gently, her eyes misty with tears. "You're our little guardian angel," she whispered. From that day on, Baby became more than a cherished pet. He was a hero in their eyes. His act of bravery strengthened the bond between him and his family. Every time they looked at him, they were reminded of the remarkable resilience and capacity for love that animals possess. Baby's story became a testament to the power of compassion and the extraordinary ways in which kindness is repaid. The family's decision to save a helpless kitten had come full circle, proving that even the smallest lives can make the biggest difference. Baby's journey from victim to savior became an unforgettable chapter in their lives, a story of hope, redemption, and the unbreakable bond between humans and their furry companions.